Good afternoon, and welcome to Gator Garage, the home of all things historical gaming in and around the city of Savannah, Georgia. This afternoon is just a show by myself, just one of the short takes that I'm starting to like to do. This weekend, I played a game of Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit 2, and that got me to thinking about different inspirations for playing our other favorite game, Bolt Action. The two factions in this scenario for squad leader were Italy versus Greece, which really kind of highlights one of the things I really like about board wargaming is you can't always just show up with your favorite pocket army. Let's say you're paratroopers and take on all comers. You usually have to take not only the terrain that the designer has put out, but also the forces that he's stuck you with. And let me tell you, Italians and Greeks, yeah, not exactly first tier, but a good game. Let me tell you. The Italians were a little weak, a little back-footed as far as the morale levels went, but they had a medium machine gun, potential firepower advantage there. The Greeks were pretty motivated. They were chasing the Italians across the table. And that's the other thing. This was a fighting retreat scenario, which you don't see a lot of in miniature tabletop gaming. A lot of objective based scenarios, a lot of meet and greet. I may use this as an inspiration for one of my scenarios in one of our upcoming bolt action tournaments. So stay tuned. Scenario is called Paper Army, and it describes both the background where basically Mussolini, in wanting to steal some limelight from Hitler, decided to launch his own European war. Wasn't content with attacking France and stabbing them in the back in June 1940. Oh no! In about October 1940, he decides to attack the country of Greece via Albania and launches his awesome attack in a rainstorm, which grounds his aircraft. That's just brilliant. So there's that potential advantage gone. And in the mud, and the wet, attack the Greek lines, and the Italians promptly get their rear ends handed to them. The Greeks do very well fighting in and amongst the mountains. They chase the Italians out of their country, all the way back into Albania, eventually triggering a German response called Operation Merida, which brings the Germans into Yugoslavia, Greece, and eventually the invasion of Crete. So there's your historical background. What's going on here? Like I said, the Italians are trying to escape a pincer, and the Greeks are trying to close the trap and capture or kill as many Italian troops as they can. Both forces enter the board from the same side, which is kind of interesting. The Italians get a full move before the Greeks enter. This game really uses the squad leader turn movement and turn sequence to best advantage. The Greeks come on with only half of their movement points available, and so the Italians have a little bit of time to retreat onto the table, maybe set up an ambush with a couple of their light machine guns, maybe get that medium machine gun repaired and back in action. Here's hoping for their sake, right? And then the Greeks are nipping at their heels, and that's kind of how the way the game goes all the way along the game. It's a very fluid game, not one where everybody's going to kind of just sit in and bunker down and take shots at each other. Here's your map board. Yellow is wheat fields, which is regarded as hindering terrain in squad leader. I also treat it as hindering in my bolt action game, meaning you can shoot through it, but it counts as cover. So something to keep in mind. The green is tree lines of trees. So if you're on either side of those, you're not shooting through. If you're in the trees, you're getting cover. The little round green things represent orchards, which in bolt action would be considered light cover. In squad leader, it gives a +1 when you're getting shot at through it. So, and it doesn't slow down your movement. So that's pretty interesting. The square colored things are either stone or wood buildings. Gray for stone, brown for wood. For anybody who's kind of new to the system, obviously, if you're translating this over to a bolt action scenario, it'd be easy enough to do. The roads aren't a major factor. You could probably, if you're building the table, you may want to include some roads. If you're out of enemy line of sight, moving down a road could speed you up. But if you're in enemy line of sight, I don't care if you're playing squad leader or if you're playing bolt action. If you're in the open taking fire, you're gonna just get hammered. So the scenario has the way we played it had the Greeks and Italians coming in from the right side of the board, and the Italians were conducting a fighting retreat off the other end of the board. So it's going to be a long scenario. Could easily run this on a 4x6. I'd recommend having the Italians about 12 inches in to represent their initial movement, and then the Greeks are going to move on. Probably give the Italians automatic first dipole on that first turn, just to kind of simulate them having an opportunity to set up their ambush and wait for the hapless Greeks to fight their way through the ambush and hopefully turn the tables on the Greeks, or turn the tables on the Italians. The Greeks also had a flanking force, which can come in on either side. It consists of 3 units and a light machine gun, so a little bit of mobility there. To be honest, I didn't take nearly as good of advantage with that as I should have. I kind of kept that whole platoon together, where maybe I should have split them up to reduce the opportunity for the uh, Italians to slide past me. They actually got enough troops off to get a win. So, one of these scenarios that, I'm trying to kill him. He's not necessarily trying to kill me. The Greeks are trying to kill the Italians, or at least cut them off, slow them down. The Italians are not necessarily trying to kill the Greeks as much as pin them down and get off the board and escape the traps. Very interesting turn limited game, 5.5 turns for ASL. Recommend a 6 turn game, probably for bolt action. There you go. Here's ASL in play. It is a hex encounter game, and I know some miniature folks will really turn their nose up at this, but I will tell you, counters are kind of nice. They can carry a lot of information on them that you would normally have to look up on charts and tables, and that can really help. Also got situational markers. CX is denoting units that have actually moved double time, so they can't do that 2 turns in a row. So we've got them marked. To the right side of the screen here, you've got the Greeks. You'll see some up in the trees up north there, and then a Greek unit that's holding in this stone house. I'm sorry, an Italian unit that's holding in this stone house and waiting on the Greeks to break the wheat field and try and dig them out. Again, really, really interesting tactical situation. There's some Italians in the woods there, just outside that wooden building, kind of just keeping an eye on the Greeks. They're kind of the rear guard, as the rest of the Italians are trying to work their way off the table. Some poor souls always get stuck holding the rear guard. That was them, so it's pretty cool. Got to say, my friend David set up a splendid ambush over on the left side of the board here. I didn't capture a picture of that for this presentation, but I had to basically fight my way through the woods road there just to get on the board, and that was awesome and bought him enough time to win in the game, I think. So who's fighting here? Italy versus Greece. Italy Alpini infantry, which are usually regarded as elite, but for this particular game and scenario, we would probably treat them as probably shirker special rule, or treat them as either regular, a mixed force of maybe regular and green. They've had a really rough time of it with the Greeks. They're trying to get out of the encirclement, so they're not your normal veteran elite troops that you would see. And the Greeks, the Greek troops here are actually rated as fanatic, so they actually get a higher morale level when they break for squad leader. For bolt action, we would use the fanatic rules, which would make them harder to break. You'll notice the Greeks here on the right. They're on the right. The Italians on the left. In researching Greek uniforms, I would say you could probably use any number of mix and match of different military uniforms to simulate the Greeks. To be honest, the officer there could easily come from either a Russian or a British kit, and the soldier definitely could come from a Russian kit. I don't know about the footgear so much but the helmet, that round helmet, is definitely something you'd expect to see in a Russian kit, and we'll show you that here in just a minute. Um, Again, well, the idea here is that as you play bolt action, or you play any tactical World War II game, sometimes the generic roll them up, see what's going on scenarios, they can get a little formulaic. Taking a scenario like this one from ASL or from one of the scenario books, there's lots of them out there, can really make for a nice afternoon of play, spice things up a little bit. Uh, Obviously, a little bit of a plug here for Gator Games and Books. We stock the Alpini, both the infantry, which can be done either in European or desert, and the support. So for this particular scenario, you would want that box of Alpini, and you'd want that Alpini medium machine gun, because that's part of your element there. And then throw maybe the medic and a couple of the officers on there to help provide leadership for your group there. Our friends the Greeks, if I were modeling them, probably model them with Soviet infantry with the round helmets, And for support, I'd use the French support box. Did a little bit of research, and the Greeks actually were using French manufactured machine guns. So you can use the French Adrian helmets just like they are. I don't think anybody would look too askance at that. Or maybe get creative and do a head swap and throw a Russian round helmet on there. Either way, and again, you see the French army guy with the kepi. I actually saw another picture of a Greek officer in that French style uniform with the kepi. So again, I think he would fit just fine. Um, again, being Greek, I think nobody's going to really get too picky. A lot of folks know that the minor nations won. They did not have the deep supply chain that many of the major nations had. And number two, they exited the war so quickly that their uniforms often were very catch as catch can. So there you go. Going on here, we have where do you get the army list for the miners? So, ASL obviously provides that as part of its kit, but Bolt Action does now too. So now is a good time if you want to try test drive a miner Axis or allied nation. Now is a great time. Warlord has the play test or the get you by army list for the miners here, which allows you to field any of the nations that are not covered in the main rule book. Great opportunity to test drive some of these minor nations, even if you decide to proxy the troops you have. So there you go. I actually have French World War One, which I'm probably going to use to test drive some French and maybe even test drive the Greeks versus the Italians. I just think that would be a lot of fun. Here's all the nations that are covered in these free PDFs. And again, the price is right, free. If you've not downloaded all these, why not? They're all free. They all give you an opportunity to kind of test drive these armies and get a feel for maybe some of the things you might see out of them as version 3 continues to be rolled out. Belgium, Bulgaria, Finland, France, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Norway, Partisans, Poland, Romania, and the Netherlands. I'll tell you, Romania used a lot of Russian looking gear. Norway, I'm not familiar with them. Partisans, obviously, you can either buy the Warlord Partisans or you can buy the War Games Atlantic, which we stock Partisans, and use that to fill your army out. Italy, everybody's got Italian troops. I've got Warlord makes a number of boxes of Italians. War Games Atlantic has a box of Italians that can be made into any number of variants. Hungary is getting a lot of attention from Warlord, both armor and infantry. Although their infantry is still the either metal or resin, so you're paying about $4 a figure. Again, Greece, I think you could fill in with the Soviets if you wanted to. France has its own plastic box set now, which is really cool, and I have that both from Warlord and from War Games Atlantic. The War Games Atlantic kit can be made into either the World War II or World War One French force, so that's pretty cool. Finland has its own troops as well from Warlord. They have the resin slash metal again at about $4 a piece, but enough to start filling out your fins. And it wouldn't be out of the question to do some mixing and matching, especially if you're running mid or late war finish, to do mix and match some German and Russian uniforms because the Finns took full advantage of that as the war went on. Bulgaria could not coach you there on that as to what that would look. Belgium wore, I want to say, a lot of French type kit, that French Adrian type helmet, used a lot of French type gear, so you could plug Belgium in that way. I think their most unique thing was I think they used dog machine gun teams, but that may have been a World War One thing. But all that to be said, that there's 12 nations here that you can test drive either. And who doesn't need an excuse to buy some more figures, right? How cool is that? So if you want to test drive any of the miners, you want to play this particular scenario, you can using the Greek and Italian lists right from the free PDF. Then you just got to either proxy in or add in your own troops. That's it for today. Just kind of a recap of my weekend, recap of some of the things that you can do to further expand your enjoyment of World War II gaming, whatever game system you're using. Flames of War, Bolt Action, World War II Assault, uh, Chain of Command, just whatever. The main thing is have fun and try and tell real good stories. That's always one of the things. I'm always one of my watchwords is what kind of cool story am I telling with this game? Thanks for your time. Keep watching our channel, and if you want to support us, buy some merch, buy us a cup of coffee at Ko-Fi or Patreon. Help us stay on the air and keep bringing you interesting stories like this one and supporting the hobby here and around Savannah. Good afternoon.